Welcome back to the Football Betting Tips and Strategies series. In this episode, we're going to look at a really important question, and that is, should you bet on cup football? There is so much football to bet on in the year, and even in the off-season, there are still many leagues around the world that still go on. You can check out my video on summer leagues for more information on that. But some weekends are just dedicated to cup competitions, like the FA Cup, the Coppa del Rey, the Coppa Italia, just to name a few. Or even worse, international breaks to play meaningless friendlies and one-sided qualifiers. I mean, who likes an international break, really? You also get midweek games as well with cup competitions. The European Cups like the Champions League, the Europa League, and even more now with the Europa Conference League. So in addition to there being loads of league games, there are also a lot of cup games for us to consider over the course of the year. But before I answer this question on whether we should bet on cup competitions, let me establish the factors we look at when analysing games. There are lots of variables to consider in sports betting, but especially football. And usually when we're analysing games, we look at form, injuries to key players, play styles of both teams, and head-to-head records. So with the first of these, we have form. Now, in my opinion and my history with sports betting, league form is a strong indicator for an upcoming league game. But league form is not a good indicator for an upcoming cup game, and cup form is not a good indicator for an upcoming cup game. So let's look at Marseille in the October-November period of 2023. They lose 1-0 away from home to Nice, and then they go on to win in the Europa League. Then back to league action and they draw at home to Lille. Then they go on to win in the Europa League again. Then they come back to the league and they draw to a very weak Strasbourg team, but somehow end up beating Ajax in the Europa League 4-3. There are so many other cases of this, but league form is just not a good indicator for cup games. And cup form is even worse. How can we measure the performance of cup games over the last 4 games when we could be looking as back as 2 or 3 months ago, given how spaced out cup games are? There is just not enough recent data for cup form to be used as an indicator. Injuries to key players is another important consideration when we're analysing games. Just look at how Manchester City are struggling this season without the influence of Kevin De Bruyne, and especially when Rodri is missing in that midfield. But with cup games, it's a little different. It's not necessarily that the players or the key players are injured, but the fact that they're just not playing at all because they're being rested. If we're analysing an upcoming cup game using form data, we would hope to see at least that the team who got those results would be the same team that are going to play in the cup game. But that's just usually not the case, and it's especially true when it comes to domestic cup competitions. The bigger team will usually rest their key players until they make it deeper into the tournament. So now this variable of key players missing becomes really unpredictable, and it's just not a factor that we can rely on when we're looking at cup games. Playstyle is less affected by the move from league to cup analysis, but head-to-head record should be fairly self-explanatory. In the league, teams usually face each other twice in a season, and this concept of bogey teams can really apply. If we look at Liverpool and Crystal Palace over the 2014-2015 period, Crystal Palace beat Liverpool in the league 4 times in a row, even though arguably Liverpool were the better team. So there, the head-to-head record can give us some insight into how an upcoming league game could go. But why is it not the same for cup head-to-head record? Well, it might be the first time that the two teams have ever faced each other, especially when you have teams from different leagues in a domestic competition. Or the last time that they faced each other was 20 or 30 years ago. Even where it's the case where 2 teams are in the same league and they're about to face each other in a cup game, the head-to-head record is not as reliable purely for the fact that they may have key players missing. They may not be playing their strongest starting 11, as we said in the last point. But there is one last thing, and it's the hidden variable, the special one: motivation. It's fair to say over the course of the season, from start to finish, that motivation is a fixed variable when analysing league games. Both teams are going out to try and get 3 points to win the game and to try and finish high in the league standings. Many players have bonuses in their contracts depending on how high they finish in the season. Motivation may become a little more variable towards the end of the season, where you have some teams who are trying to avoid relegation, some teams trying to win promotion or win the title, and teams going for European places, whilst other teams have secured their mid-table spot and are already going on summer holiday. So motivation is fixed when we're analysing league games, both teams going at it 100%. In cup competitions, we have no fucking idea. Arsenal could be in a great run of form and then they have an upcoming Carabao Cup game. Of course, they're going to try to win every game possible. But where do you think their priority is? In winning the league or a Carabao Cup game? Of course, it's in winning the league. And that's reflected usually in the player selection that Arteta will make when he's picking his Carabao Cup. So therefore, the league is the priority for Arsenal, especially if they're in contention this year, whilst the Carabao Cup will not be as much of a priority. And with the lack of priority comes a lack of motivation. And you could say, but sure, wouldn't that apply to all teams? Well, no, because not all teams are in the winning to run the league. Not all teams are going to be trying to avoid relegation. And it may be one of their key objectives to try and have a deep cup competition run. In those cup competitions, they will be more motivated than Arsenal or other big teams who may not have the Carabao Cup as such of a priority for them for the course of the season. And this is especially the case where you have a lower league team who are facing a super club or one of the bigger teams in the country. There's that extra motivation to try and take down the big team. Problem is, we can never know which teams are going to be motivated by cup competitions unless you're actually sitting there in the changing room and hearing the manager speak. We just don't know which teams are going to be more motivated for cup games than others. Motivation is the hidden variable, and luckily when we're analysing league games we can just assume that it's fixed. But for cup games it's completely random. We just don't know from team to team, and it's potentially one of the most important variables to consider. And for cup games we just can't measure it. So to answer the question I posed at the start of the video, should you bet on cup competitions? Absolutely not. You've got a better chance of going to a casino and placing your money on red or black at the roulette table. Both league and cup form are inconclusive indicators of an upcoming cup game. Teams are not likely to field their strongest 11. The head-to-head record may go too far back or may not even exist. And then we have that special variable, motivation. It's fixed for league games, but for cup competitions, we just can't measure which teams are going to be motivated for games and which teams are just not going to give a shit. If you did want to make money though, Football Bank is the best football betting channel on YouTube, bringing you tips and strategies to make you serious money. With Patreon access, I'll bring you tips and live in-play bets. We've got 2 membership tiers to show your support for the channel and get access to this exclusive content. With the professional tier, ahead of each game week, the Football Bank will send you 3 specially crafted tips based on extensive research across European leagues and research of over 100 games to find the best picks to make profit. With the Legend tier, you get the pre-game tips from the professional tier, but you also get access to the Football Bank Telegram channel. In this channel, we'll be posting live in-play picks across the game week using strategies honed over years of research. Save yourself the trouble of tracking hundreds of games every week and join the Telegram channel to get the best in-play tips. Whatever you choose, your support is always appreciated. But I have one question for you. Are you ready to be a winner? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, as always, please leave a like and subscribe. It'll help the channel to grow and I can bring you more content like this. Until next time, goodbye.